Good morning, everybody. This will wake you up. I've just come down the farmyard. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. The sun is just up, so beginning to light the countryside up outside. And Rat has come down the farmyard with me, and we've come into the large farm workshop. And one thing he can't stand in here is pigeons. And they've come in to feast on the barley that's down the end of the barn. So just going to open the up and over doors up to let them out. And Rat has run down the far end of the building. And he's jumping up in the air down at the far end there, trying to get them out. Come on out, you pigeons. Good boy, Rat. Good boy. So, he's rather demented, I think. Right, the doors are properly open there. It's nice and light outside, so the pigeons that got stuck in here last night together with my bantams are now free to go out for the day. And there's still two left down at the far end here. Oh dear, squeezing between the building and the wall here and the farm machinery. Come on, you two pigeons, out you come. The trouble is, the machinery, the lovely clean hay machinery, has been stored at the back of the barn, and it's pristine clean. And now there's a very large layer of deposits on it, where the pigeons have spent the night and pooed on the machine. So Rat doesn't think that should happen. And good boy, he's just jumped up and down and seen the last two out of the building. So there we are. That's kind of started the day off for us in a really noisy fashion. I've got Matthew coming along later this morning, and we'll be looking at some of the trees on the farm that are producing some of the berries, some of the crops that I've made a mistake with that have come out absolutely top trumps now, accidentally. And so we've got a busy morning, and then I'll be out collecting some of the logs out on the farm that were sawn up a year ago, and they need to come into the dry now for storage over the winter to finish off the drying process. So there we are, early morning plane just taking off from Norwich Airport and flying right over the top of me, heading southwards, perhaps down to the Canary Isles, looking at the direction it's heading off. Big load of passengers on board. It's a 737 by the look of it, and the early morning sunshine's just picking up. But what a glorious sight. The sun's just out and illuminating the side of the woodland and the big old oak here in the middle of the farmyard. Right, off we go. Let's do some work. Right, you ready, Rat? Come on. Work to do. Come along. Hop in the tractor. Good boy, come on, in you get. Good lad.
Chris Skinner's Countryside Podcast with Matthew Gudgeon.
I've donned the wellies again. Yes, it's time for another Countryside Podcast. And the inimitable Chris Skinner, who farms a square mile of Norfolk countryside, very close to Norwich, has invited me back to take a look at the farm and the wildlife for another Countryside Podcast. And Chris, we're out on a field here, and it can't get more perfect than this on an autumn morning. The colours, the vibrancy, the blue sky, everything is beautiful.
Well, I knew you were coming, Matthew, so I arranged the weather. You know what farmers are like. It's absolutely stunning, you're right. The colours this year, as the low sun at this time of the year kind of illuminates the trees differently to normal, and you've got a whole array of every variety of green, browns, golds, and every colour in between, and it just kind of lifts a spirit. It's really, really wonderful. So fantastic time of year and fantastic crops, because we've got an old farming adage which says you should live as though you're going to die tomorrow and farm as though you're going to live forever. And so what that means is you have to look a long way ahead if you're farming, planting trees, planting hedges, planning out your crops. And we're standing on a field which is just a little bit green. It was bare earth just 3 weeks ago. It's 2 hectares, which this particular block of the field is 5 acres in old money. And I'm quite excited about it because I've never done this before. I've planted a new crop. It's partly for birds and partly for seed. But I said, you've got to farm as though you're going to live forever, and this won't come to fruition until about August 2025 because it's a biennial. And I've broadcast the seed on, and I'm sort of jumping up and down with joy because it's germinated. If you just walk out a little bit, sorry, it's very wet and clayey. The name of this field's called Dirty Close, so you kind of know what you're going to get.
Dirty, mucky stuff.
It is real clay, and underneath on your foot down, the clay isn't yellow like you would normally expect clay to be. It's a kind of dark blue called merle colour, and it's really, really, really heavy stuff. So the horses used to come back to the farmyard when they'd been ploughing on there, and they'd have mud all up their legs. Now, this is the exciting bit, because I can see particular plants here, and I was trained at college how to identify them, and this is the new crop right by my index finger there. That's teasel, Dipsarchus phelonium, and in 2 years' time, if we're standing here, the teasels will be, or should be, taller than us, and there's probably 50 to 60 seedlings in a square foot, which is much more than enough. You can see one there, just on the tip of my index finger. There is 2. Their first little leaves have grown already, little cotyledons, and then the first proper leaves are coming up in the centre, and they will form a rosette over this winter, about 4 inches or 100 millimetres wide. The leaves will go flat out onto the ground and help sort of control the grasses around them.
So this whole field, and this is quite a large field here, Dirty Close, I've heard you
Yes.
talking about it before, but it's a large field, isn't it? It's going to be all teasel?
Yes, it's just teasel, this particular portion of it. The whole field is 8 hectares, about 20 acres, and this 2 hectare bit in the centre of it is ideal soil. Having said that, it's fantastic wheat land, but I've stopped arable production here, and I've moved the sort of shift of the farm over to looking after the environment, and in particular biodiversity. Teasel's brilliant as well. When it starts to come into flower, it's a real attractant to lots of different species of butterflies, lots of insects as well, and in the evening hours and overnight, moths as well love it. And then later on, and particularly at this time of the year, it produces seed, which is a great favourite, particularly of goldfinches. They seem to love it. Scientific name of the goldfinch is Cardulus, which is thistle, and sort of teasels are a member of the thistle family.
We've already seen one this morning, haven't we, on the way here?
Yes, we have, Dipsarchus phelonium. So there we are, beautiful, beautiful little plants, and they're right in this small state, and that's the exciting bit. And if I just snip one of the little cotyledons off, already the little spines are on the top of the leaf, you can see, and the leaf's quite thistle-like. You can just stroke your finger on the top of it.
Oh yes, just the beginnings of
just the beginnings
the
of-
very famous element of a teasel is the prickles, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yes. So, and Dipsarchus is the Greek word for drinking, and strange thing is where the leaves join the stem of the teasel in dry weather, even in dry weather, there's a little cup of water there, and it used to think that the water would trap insects, and teasels were a kind of carnivorous plant, which they're not. They just have this ability because the leaf joins all the way around the stalk and makes little cups like that, like 2 hands joined together around the stalk. So that's very exciting for me. So lots of potential there. And we always have these planes when we're doing this recording. I think they're practicing this morning.
It might be your private jet.
Yes, it could be, come to pick me up. And right beside us, in the other portion of the field, is Overwinter Wild Bird Seed Mix. And it's lovely and tall at the moment. There's some perennial sow thistle, which has been in flower over the summer months, and it's now produced these little plumes here. Again, you can see I've just pulled some off in my finger. They can blow them away in the wind like that.
Little furry things.
And they absolutely, goldfinches absolutely love them. They're perched on these plants and they're busy plucking the seeds out. And if the little plumes stay on till next spring on some of the plants, they also use them for building their nests. They line their nests with these lovely, soft, downy little seedlings. So really fantastic plants. Now, I don't always have success in my farming ventures, particularly because not many people have been farming for wildlife using environmental crops for many years, really. If you provide benefit for biodiversity in past years, then it would have been an accident, like leaving your stubbles over the winter, for instance, and any spills that you had from the combine, any small seeds blowing out of the old binders or the combines years ago would feed overwinter birds. Birds like yellowhammers and linnets, grey partridge, for instance, all of which were common farmland birds. Most of those have become red list species now. And so that would be, it kind of was a haphazard way of looking after wildlife. Now we've learnt so much more about the environment that we should be doing it properly. But this is a mistake. If we walk in a little bit...
Well, this patch of the field here?
Yeah, yes, there's 5 more acres of cereals here. It's wheat, barley and triticale all mixed up. And it's standing as though a farmer's just going to come in and cut this with a combine. It's absolutely perfect, but it's an accident.
Oh.
Because I broadcast the seed on and disked it in, which I do every year. Works really, really well. And the variety of triticale I used, I hadn't realised, is a winter variety. That means you usually plant the seeds sort of August, September, October time, maybe just into the beginning of November if the weather's right, and you would do that with either winter wheat or winter barley. Those species are capable of going over the winter months and surviving and thriving, and then once they're vernalised over the cold weather, it's sort of partly the name for spring, so they have to wait for spring to then complete their life cycle, and they then grow away in March, April and May. But I used a winter variety and I planted it in the spring. And it was all lush and green in the bottom of the crop, and there was no ears coming in July, no ears in August, no ears till the beginning of September. And because we had that dry weather, the plants thought, we've just been vernalised, so we've had the shock, but instead of cold weather and frosts and long dark periods of darkness, the plants thought that long, dry, hot, sunny period, the plants are under stress, and they said, right, away we go. And from October onwards, they sent up these stalks, and they've produced perfectly good grain. It's as though we're standing in this field in early June, but it's well into November, and it's absolutely perfect. I should be getting the combine out if I had it, and it's all produced perfectly good grain.
It doesn't look like an autumnal scene, this, does it?
No, it doesn't.
But us blokes never read the instructions on the packet, do we?
No, I hadn't realised it was a winter variety, you see, and I just ordered what I normally order and get the seed all here, and it's broadcast on. The barley is all finished. It's right down at the bottom here. It has produced grains, but it's only a foot high. The triticale, which is close relation of rye and wheat, it's kind of mixed together, is really growing away. And this is the result of the crop that should have been underneath here, and it's barley, that's spring barley, so it grew away normally, and it has produced a seed in the lower part of the crops.
So this will all be good for the birds, won't it?
Absolutely. No, it's a mistake with a really happy ending. So sometimes I hold my hands up when I get things wrong, and yet it's absolutely perfect. And the sun's glinting on the ears in front of us here, and it's just such a wonderful sight. So it's a mistake with a really happy ending. So you've got a smiling farmer here.
Is that Rat?
I think there's Rat in the distance there. He's complaining bitterly about being left behind in the truck. So I think we'd better go and rescue him. But we've got another lovely piece to do in a minute.
Back at the farmyard, Chris, and we've just taken a break to have a look at some rather exciting bird life here.
You're telling me, Matthew, right at the end of one of the new buildings is a venerable old yew tree. It's absolutely beautiful. It's the best part of 50 feet tall, and it's covered in that deep, dark green foliage all over it. And at this time of the year, there's thousands and thousands of red, I was going to call them berries on it, but they're not actually berries, they're called arils. And yew trees are a conifer, which many people don't realise, and the arils are bright blood red with a hard little stone in the middle, which is the fruiting body, if you like, of the next generation of yew trees. Very slow growing. That tree was planted at the same time that High Ash farmhouse was built in about 1860. So
And now it's taller than the house.
It is, yes. Look, they're similar height, really. Yeah. So this time of the year, it provides this incredible crop of arils. All parts of the yew tree, the trunk, the foliage, are all poisonous. The sap's poisonous, and that's why you'll often see it planted in churchyards as well, to deter sort of grazing livestock that farmers used to put their cattle and sheep in amongst the gravestones. But one way of stopping that is to plant yew trees, because the cattle would be poisoned, and
So
it's particularly poisonous to horses.
And there's a lot of bird life and birds going in and out in the sunshine here, and I can see the red berries, the arils.
Yes.
So what bird particularly likes those arils?
Incredible. What's happened is there's some cold weather over in Western Europe, over in Denmark at the moment, and once you move further inwards and northwards into Scandinavia, Sweden and Norway, the winter visiting thrushes come across the North Sea to enjoy our crop of berries over here. So we've got winter visiting thrushes, both redwing and fieldfare. I'm watching out for waxwing as well. They absolutely love them. But I've yet in my entire life to see a waxwing in the flesh, so to speak. I've never seen one. I'm waiting for them to come here. But the two winter visiting thrushes are joined by our own largest species of thrush, the mistle thrush, or the mistletoe thrush, if you like. And so they're all busy feasting on blackbirds, and song thrushes also feed on them. And right near the top, there's loads of birds now coming in. Right near the top of the tree is a beautiful, beautiful greenfinch, and they're all busy feasting on these. Well, there's tens of thousands of arils on that tree. It should last about a fortnight. So what I'm going to do, as soon as you're gone, I'm going to get the camera and pop it close to the branches of the trees so we can get a real close-up view of the redwing, that beautiful little rustic russet red stripe just on the underside of the wing covert, and see if we can also get Turdus vociferus, I call it. The scientific name is Turdus vociferus, which is the mistle thrush. It's a really lovely sight. So if you're out and about in the Norfolk countryside at this time, keep your eyes out for these winter visiting marauders, which pillage the hawthorn, the blackthorn as well, all the berries in the hedges. It's the end of the blackberries already, so they now move on to the arils on these yew trees. What a lovely sight, Matthew. You're spoiled.
jackdaws are making themselves busy in the sunshine.
Yes, and they're all sunbathing. Matthew, we're looking down into one of the valleys at High Ash Farm. The field in front of us is called the Temple Field, and it was a hive of activity 2,000 years ago because there were 2 temples down at the far end, Romano-Celtic temples, so a lot of history here. And just look down in the valley, there's rooks with their glossy plumage, and they're busy hawking over the horse pastures there and looking for soil invertebrates. This is a good time of year for them because there's easy access to easy food for them. The worms are up near the top. We've had ample rain.
Well, that was underwater down there not long ago.
Yes, and so that's brought the worms up close to where the area was actually waterlogged. Where the water was, the worms all died, and they kind of floated up to the top because it was underwater for about 4 days. But the rooks are really clever. They've all now had their fill. There they go. They're flying off, and they will do some sunbathing in the top of the trees a bit further down this fantastic avenue of oak trees. Each oak tree's a different colour. There's one there, a glorious golden colour. This one's doesn't even think it's autumn yet, the one above us. Just a little patch of gold foliage there, and the rest of the tree is perfectly dark green. But if you look down into the valley, Matthew, the beech trees are nearly all lost their leaves now. So autumn happens for different trees at kind of different times of the year, and all you need now is a good northerly wind, and you'll be walking through there and the leaves cascade round you. It's a lovely sight. And one of the amazing things is some of the trees, they're conifers, and normally you'd think they're evergreens, but not all conifers stay green over the winter months. And one of them in front of the wood there's a whole avenue of them. They're larch, Larix decidua, the scientific name, and that gives you the clue to what's happening. It's a deciduous conifer. So in the next few days the larch changed colour from that lovely deep green with all the little leaves on, and they go to almost a golden colour, and in the low sunshine which you get this time of the year, the whole wood becomes luminous. It's such an exotic sight.
Well, it's already looking lovely in this morning sunshine.
Yes, beautiful. And behind us we've got one of the margins here at the farm here, because this is quite a steep slope down into the valley, and there's clay on the field in front of us here. This one's called Barnfield, 30 odd acres. And there's a gentle slope down towards, and then it gets steeper and steeper. And in the past, water's run down this hill over onto Caister Lane, and I've often driven up and down there with the digger bucket on to get the mud back off the road. But this margin here has stopped that, and so it's under countryside stewardship. And it's tussocky grass out here, which is really doing the job. So we've got a really high small mammal population. And if you want to see the barn owls early morning or early evening here at High Ash Farm, this is the place to stand.
Do you have field mice on here?
Yes, lots of it. There's harvest mice here, field voles and shrews, so high population of small mammals here. Tussocky grass, ideal, and this is coming up to the time of the year when I do my harvest mouse nest hunting, because the foliage starts to die down. This species of grass is tall. Look, it's 4-5 feet tall, and it forms these tussocky clumps there. This one's called cocksfoot, which is the name of the grass, and it's quite dense. It's quite drought resistant, so you get quite early growth from it. And it's already producing some green shoots for next year down here. They're already there, and they'll stay green right through the winter. And that's what the voles love. They come and chew the bottom of these plants. Let's just see if we can see. Yep, you can see some of them have been chewed off. Look, can you see?
Yes,
3 or 4.
I can see the evidence of a vole.
Yes, so that's a vole been chewing off those lovely and there's all the. Oh, look at this. Yeah, look at that. So I wonder we haven't seen one. So there's a big worm cast there, and then all this little green vegetation is chopped up, and that's food for the voles. So, and they're the ones that are really grumpy, and they make lots of noise as well. And if I had Rat with me this morning, he'd be standing here with his head on one side, then the other, and he'll do a pounce into the grass, but he never catches them. He's not a very good mouser. So there we are. That's just perfect and pure chance.
It's just a random little piece of ground there.
Yeah, really lovely.
In amongst these tussocks.
Yes, and there's some teasels that will come into flower and produce their long stalks. They're already 8 to 10 inches across the rosette. They go through this winter. Lovely clump of them there. And they'll be in flower here in about August 2024. I have to get my ears right. Little fungus growing there as well, and more evidence that voles have been here. All these chewed up stalks, and they have to eat and eat and eat and eat to get enough sustenance. But
yes, you wouldn't get much out of that, would you?
No, we wouldn't, but that's what they live on, so they're strictly vegetarian. Beautiful.
Well, we're always delighted to receive your correspondence to the podcast, and the Countryside Podcast email address I'll give out in just a moment. But first of all, hello to Rob and Tina, the Buntings, who they have been having a nice walk in the Kings Lynn area along Clark's Dyke, the Borsey Drain around the Gaywood River, and they couldn't believe their eyes. There were mallard ducks swimming along the dyke, they tell us. All in a line was a drake, a female, and 3 little ducklings, no more than a couple of days old. A most beautiful sight, but Rob and Tina do fear that it's the wrong time of the year.
Yes, probably what's happened there is the early brood has failed, and the female has done a second nesting attempt, but left it rather late, probably into September before she started incubating that second brood. And hence she's incubated them. There's been a successful hatching, but when she get the cold nights, remember those little baby ducklings haven't developed their proper plumage yet. They've got down on them, and they're very susceptible to getting wet and to the cold as well. So it's unlikely that they survive, but there's always a slight chance they might.
It's the weird weather that's caused it, and our hottest day of the year this year was quite well into September.
Yes, it was. Yes, and that's what tempted them to go for this late brood that they're brought off. But unusual to see Dad in attendance. Normally mallard ducks don't have anything to do, that's the drakes, with their offspring. They just desert them for Mum to look after.
Now let's hear from Ron, who lives in Old Buckenham. I've set a challenge to my grandson, he's in his early 20s, to make me 4 to 5 terraces of sparrow nest boxes by the end of this year. If he takes on the challenge, I'll get them installed. Do I need to do anything, though, to get the sparrows to start using it? I've got plenty of them around in the hedge in the garden and making use of the bird feeder, but how do I attract them?
Interesting question, but that's my speciality. I love the sparrows here at the farm. It's kind of a guilt thing, I think, because I spent my early childhood with a catapult, trying to catapult them on the farm buildings. Then I was given an air rifle and had a go at shooting them. And later on, with my father, I was taken out into this particular field, barn field, close to the farmyard itself, and he would be shooting them with a 12 bore, and they became a red list species. So in order to put things right in my lifetime, I've put up lots of nest boxes, which I did in the farm, and we had a new building, put up 42 nest boxes, lots of sparrows still about in the farmyard, but none were used. And then a local gamekeeper I heard about it and visited me, and we were having a chat, and he said, you know what you should do? Get some hay and stuff in the holes and just leave it hanging out. Because he told me about sparrows, members of the weaver bird family, some of the most untidy nesters in the world. So I did that. I just hoped no local farmers were watching, and I went up a ladder with a handful of hay and poked some in all the nest boxes so it's hanging out of the little hole.
Just a few wisps.
That's all it took, and within a week all the wisps had gone. They hadn't fallen out. The sparrows took up occupation and have been there ever since. 42 nest boxes in a terrace, all in a row, everyone occupied. What a result.
That's the secret then. So good luck with that, Ron, and I hope your grandson does the business as well with the carpentry. Beryl Amis has written in from Swaffham. She remembers you talking about encouraging supermarkets to be friendly to the swallows, who of course aren't here at the moment, they've flown off. But Beryl says that she just wanted to tell you about one of them that you mentioned, a supermarket in Berwick, which is all the way up in Northumberland, near Scotland's border with England. And she says, I was in Berwick and I saw lots of swallows flying in and out. Too quick for me to photograph, but a lovely sight, especially as we don't have them here in Swaffham.
Yes, what a result. And I had lots of correspondence with the store manager at North Berwick on the Tesco store there. They look out over the Bass Rock, which is only just off the coast there with all the gannets on it. And we persuaded them, together with the management at Tesco at Harford Bridges in Norwich, to keep the swallows, take the nets down. And up here there in North Berwick, they've got swallows and house martins galore nesting right at the entrance of the store. What a result. And it's all a big thank you as well to somebody in my phone who's called Tesco Carol. She helps to run the store down there and she's really enthusiastic. But that's absolutely a wonderful result. And thank you very much for the card.
Hello to Sheila O'Connor, who's emailed us just to say that she's listening into the podcast, enjoying it very much, and she's got a small native woodland in the west of Ireland, 40 acres, but she loves listening into all your musings about wildlife, because a lot of it, of course, is similar in Ireland, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yes. So fantastic, and that's a brilliant habitat over there. Woodland, particularly in the UK. I mean, the United Kingdom is the least wooded country in the whole of Europe per person area, so it's not a very good record to have. So woodland over there in Ireland is particularly important. You have a completely different range of wildlife over there than we do here in the eastern side of the United Kingdom, so it's a real gem, and it provides sort of pleasure and habitat for wildlife as well. So it's got lots and lots of potential there, and you're really lucky to be custodian of that area of woodland.
And our old friend Trevor Mays has emailed in. Trevor lives in South Norfolk, and he says he's an ace photographer, as regular listeners will know. And Trevor has sent us a beautiful photograph of sunrise on Dickleborough Moor, taken just a few days ago. The moor is flooded at the moment, and it's given the photo a different perspective, he says, and really how right he is. He hasn't photoshopped or done anything with that, and it's burning red. Beautiful, isn't it?
It's such a wonderful picture. It just gladdens the heart to see that early morning mist, cobweb on the wires, and an old hay rack feeding manger in the centre of the picture. It's just, I mean, that's pure art, that is, and you could have that framed. You can send it off as Christmas cards or birthday cards to anybody. Congratulations, captures the Norfolk countryside absolutely perfectly, makes you glad to be alive.
It's Chris Skinner's Countryside Podcast, and you can always get in touch with any questions, comments, or we love looking at the photographs very much. And there are so many very keen photographers now. Digital photography has made it so much more accessible. But email in, and you can do that, chris@countrysidepodcast, that's all one word, .co.uk. chris@countrysidepodcast.co.uk. And that address is there on the website as well. And, keep them coming.
Yes, yeah, the more the merrier. We love your questions. We love the response. And I'll do what best I can to capture the Norfolk countryside, and we might sort of get away again before too long and visit different parts of our county. There's so many different habitats there. We've got Broadland with all the Broads there and the wildlife that you see in river settings as well. We've got the arable land all over the county. We've got large areas of woodland, particularly down at the Forestry Commission down in the Thetford area, and heathland as well. So we're absolutely spoilt. And of course, the big coastal area all the way round, up from the Wash right down to the Suffolk border, and there's a whole variety of different habitats in the coastal area too. So we hope to visit some of those and see what we can pick out, so to help you enjoy the countryside a little bit more.